person that I think it really affects the most is Glover Teixeira, the former champion, who was 30 seconds from retaining his belt when Jiri fought him the first time. He wasn't willing to fight on short notice, and I think that ultimately it hurts him because Glover Teixeira was getting an immediate rematch based on how good the first fight was. Jiri Prochazka wanted to fight him again based on what the first fight was. But Glover Teixeira said, I need more time for Magomed Ankalaev. I'll fight Jan Blachowicz right now, but I need Magomed's time. He goes, I said, okay, I'll fight Jan in Vegas if you're going to throw me off. Jan has a regular stance. Ankalaev is a totally different game. I will need more time. Glover Teixeira offered up to fight him in Brazil in January. But when you look at that, Ryan, do you think Glover kind of saying certain matchups are different to me? I cannot make the pivot right away. Give me the time. He's not wrong, RC. Should he be penalized for that?
He's not wrong, but the business is bigger than the man when it comes to the UFC. I've seen great UFC champions, DC. I've seen the Daniel Cormiers, the John Joneses. We've seen the Chuck Liddells. We've had the Conor McGregors. Some of these people that almost seem to be bigger than life, right? Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre. The UFC has not only survived their losses, they've survived their retirements and continue to be one of the fastest growing sports in the entire world. And so when a guy like Glover Teixeira, who, yes, has worked his way to being a champion after falling in championship opportunities, loses his belt, you love the story of getting that immediate rematch because of how well you fought the first time. But the UFC waits on no man. There are so many fighters in the UFC where you said right now, hey, we're going to give you Ankalaev for the title, that take it right now, that don't ask, oh, I need more time, or I need to do this. And obviously he was willing to fight Jan Blachowicz because Jan Blachowicz is someone that he's already beaten for the belt and he's had that training camp. But that's not how it works, DC. He is no longer the champion. He does no longer hold that title or that cachet because he has the strap. And so I don't think he's being penalized for it, DC. To say he's being penalized means that you feel he's being treated differently than any other contender in the world would be treated. And he's not. He's being treated the same, DC. He's being treated like any other contender who can have an opportunity to fight for the belt. If that's you in this position, how are you taking what Glover Teixeira is having to deal with right now? Like, how are you enduring it and dealing with it?
I believe that, honestly, I would do the same thing if I was Glover. I'm like, it's different, right? So when I was fighting, they told me as the champ, would you fight Derek Lewis on 3 weeks' notice? Knowing the matchup, I said, sure. Stipe Miocic, I would not have fought on 3 weeks' notice because it's a different matchup. When I had to fight Rumble Johnson for the vacant title, God rest his soul, sure, I'll fight Rumble Johnson. When they said Dan Henderson on a few weeks, or 6 weeks, 5 weeks, or whatever, I wasn't in camp, sure, because I know the matchup. But Glover Teixeira also understands that if you give him Jan Blachowicz, he has fought him before, he's done training camps for him before. Magomed Ankalaev is an unknown, Ryan. Nobody knows what this kid really is, especially being that he's so highly regarded. If he was just a young kid that nobody knew, that wasn't thought to be a future champion, I think anyone would jump at the opportunity to become champ. But again, we're talking about a 43-year-old man who has been the UFC champion.
DC, I have a question.
The best of the best.
I got a question, DC. Do you think how much does where Glover is in his life and career factor into this? And I'm saying that to say this. If Glover Teixeira is 30, right? If he's 30, he understands that he could lose against Ankalaev and get back with an opportunity to win that light heavyweight title. Does being in this position say, you know what? If I lose to him right now, I will never get another chance because I'm going to retire soon. I'm never going to get another chance to do it.
Time. He doesn't have time to rebuild, RC. Like, he's 43.
Right.
When you get to this point at this age, you've got to capitalize on it right now or it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
At 30, when Glover got here on an 18-fight win streak, Glover was able to work his way up to a title fight against Jones, lose, work his way up into a number one contenders fight against me, lose, work his way back to another number one contenders fight, lose, then work himself all the way back up to the champion because he had time. At 43 years old, you don't have time. So you have to be very selective with what you're doing. Bro, I don't disagree with Glover. I think that if I was in the same situation with Ankalaev, too many unknowns for a guy that isn't necessarily known to the general public, who isn't a guy that everyone recognizes as a top contender, because Magomed has not been in the game long enough and he has not stood aside or across the octagon from the people that make you as recognizable as you need to be in order to be viewed in that way. Think about this. Sean O'Malley now has stood across the octagon from Petr Yan. Sean O'Malley already had a name built in, but now you have the visual of him in there against a former champion doing very well. So you could sell him as a legit title contender. The biggest name that we have seen him in there with is Anthony Smith. No knock on Anthony, but it's not like being in there with Dan Henderson and all those guys that I fought, Josh Barnett, Bigfoot Silva, Frank Mir, before I ultimately got to a championship fight. You need those guys, Ryan, to elevate you to that point to be viewed in that way, and I don't think Glover sees him in that light.
Yeah, and especially with a guy like Ankalaev as juxtaposed to where Glover is in his career, I think by not having that sort of name, if you lose to him, the perception of the fans go, okay, you lost to Jiri late, now you lose to Ankalaev, you don't deserve another title shot or you don't deserve another opportunity at the belt, and you can't risk that, especially being where he is in his career and understanding that he wants to be champion again after already getting to that point.
Or Ryan, you can't beat the young guys, right? It's a young man's game.
Yeah.
You can't. Every time you're in there with the young guys, you cannot beat the young guys, and it's time for them to move on from you. But again, dude, you also run the risk of fighting Ankalaev and getting mopped up because the guy is that good.
Right.
You can literally get embarrassed, and then what? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think it's smarter to share.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.